City of Stevens Point Plan Commission meeting, recorded May 6, 2024.
I have 6 o'clock. We will call the regular Plan Commission meeting to order. Before we get started with the roll call, I'd like to welcome Doug Miskowiak, who is our newest Plan Commissioner. Thank you for agreeing to take the job, and hopefully after tonight you'll still keep the job. So welcome. Ryan, could you please call a roll?
Weeza.
Here.
Kneebone.
Here.
Arnson.
Here.
Beacom.
Here.
Miskowiak.
Here.
Rice.
Here.
And Schuler's excused. We have a quorum.
Thank you very much, and we will continue. I want to remind everybody, the fire marshal says we can have 49 people in here. There are 49 chairs. The overflow room is just down the hall, so if you don't have a chair, you can go across the hall or down the hall. The same monitors there will allow plenty of time if anybody needs to get over here and speak. Item number 2 on the agenda is our report of the April 1st meeting of the City Plan Commission. Moved by Arnson, seconded by Rice. Any discussion? Comments from the audience? Dang, I thought that's why you were all here. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? And that is approved. Item number 3 is a public hearing with subsequent actions on a request from Zach Brocken, representing North Reserve Property Group, LLC, for a conditional use permit to construct 5 single-family homes on an unaddressed parcel bounded by Reserve Street North and Bluebell Lane, with the parcels identified in your packet, consistent with our zoning chapters 23.01, sub 14, sub F, and chapter 23.02, sub 1, sub G, sub 16, sub F. Before we get started, Adam?
Thank you, Mayor. So the request before you all this evening is to construct 5 single-family homes on the property, each being 2,160 square feet in size. You can actually go on the next slide. You can see on the submitted site plan the 5 single-family homes in question. Each of the buildings will be serviced by a private driveway using an existing apron located off of Reserve Street. So the reason for this request, why it's brought before this commission, is twofold. The first being is that this parcel, along with the parcels to the south, are zoned B4 commercial, and within the B4 commercial district, a single-family residential use would be a conditional use. So that's the first reason for this conditional use request. The second reason, and this would be similar to many of the other developments over the last few years, is since there's more than one primary structure on the same parcel, that requires a conditional use permit per the city's zoning code, which again is a second basis for this conditional use request. Really, the site plan that's been vetted by numerous departments, as you can see on the next slide, there's a litany of conditions that staff's recommending, those focused on trying to minimize any impacts on the surrounding residential uses to the north and on the east side of Reserve Street North, to address some of the environmental considerations that were addressed within the staff report as it relates to wetlands located south of the property, and then likewise some basic conditions related to fire access and EMS operations. So staff would recommend approval and be happy to take any questions.
Okay, before we go that far, are there any clarifying questions from the commissioners before I open the public hearing? Yes, sir, Mr. Rice.
Yeah, I guess I'll start out with voicing my usual concern for the newer folks. We've had a number of these type of developments over the last number of years. I have concerns about future ownership of these. Again, the city understands a need for owner-occupied housing. There's a demand for owner-occupied housing. When a developer undertakes a development like this, they often either are retaining ownership of all the buildings or maybe selling it to another single owner. And from my perspective, like that ownership probably remains in the hands of a single person kind of into perpetuity. I mean, obviously we don't know the future, maybe the zoning laws change. Could city staff again kind of walk me through or remind me, like, the decision-making to do it this way versus like a planned unit development versus simply allowing for smaller zone lots. Again, I understand the need for the density, which is why we've allowed this kind of in the past, and generally think these are good ideas. I do have some concerns, and yeah, just curious, just staff's got some perspective there.
Let me address that now.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so as it relates to this specific development, there were a couple considerations that were had to address your comments, Commissioner. I mean, one, the site layout is designed in a way that if the applicant or future property owners would want to transition the buildings into a condominium, they would be able to do so. There would be sufficient separation between the two buildings from a building code perspective. Likewise, Bluebell Lane, as you see, situated to the north of the property, that's not a city street. If at any point in the future that would become a city-controlled street, the layout of the site is designed in a way that each building could be split into its own separate lot, if that would ever happen in the future. So those were kind of the considerations in mind to help address that.
Very good, thank you.
Any other clarifying questions before I open the public hearing? Commissioner Moscoviak, the process on a public hearing is we don't entertain a motion until the public has had a chance to speak. That's a legal requirement. We have a public hearing process, so you get to see what that is right now. With that, I declare the public hearing open. Anyone wishing to offer testimony on this particular item, step forward and state your name and address for the record and provide that testimony.
Ron Oftemauer, 2224 Michigan Avenue. I own the parcel that's south, and that's where the setbacks would be. And if we look at the slide, and if you can scroll up,
This one, that one,
the buildings.
the buildings.
Yes.
This one?
The buildings, yes, but you
Okay.
can't see the.
Let me move everybody over
there you
here.
go. Okay. On here, this is attached to the building. This is the same roof line, and they have it looking like it's not attached, okay? And then they have here 5 foot on a setback. Now, on the conditional use, it's 10 feet. And they have on the proposal, on the document, that it's 12 feet. Is that, which is it, number one? Number two?
Sir, we'll address those questions
Okay.
after the public
Okay.
hearing.
Very fine,
So
Mr.
Adam, make
Rizzo.
note of that, and
Yeah,
you can
okay.
address that afterwards.
There is, Corps of Engineers went through there, and they ditched that whole area and Century and the property behind. So there's a ditch running between our parcels of this development and mine to the south. Now, when I'm reading on the proposal, he has a raised, bermed area, and he thinks he's going to do that in 5 feet. Well, he's got to maintain his half of that ditch also. And the Corps of Engineers put it in there. It drains all of Century and everything to the west on that whole parcel, which is another, 40 acres? So that needs to be addressed and not left in vague. I noticed in the frontage, he has a 25-foot setback is required, and he has a proposed 50-foot. So it's not that he couldn't take those buildings and shift them all forward. And these are the concerns, and this is the contingency that's on conditional use, that it doesn't even meet the requirements.
Okay, thank you.
Am I missing anything, Sane?
I think you were concerned about the water.
Right,
I
right.
mean,
It's the drainage,
that place for the water.
right? That it doesn't get pushed on my land, and I think that the layout is deceiving, because if you look at, I don't know, if you were to scroll deeper and you have a profile of the buildings, that roof line continues over that back porch area. And there certainly aren't going to put a grass raised knoll in the walkway. So that needs to be addressed, and I think it needs to be addressed. Secondly, I don't even know if this is a legal summons, because Zach is legally, it's not his real name. His real name is Zachary, and you can't look up any legal documents under Zach, so I don't know if legal's here. But he needs to use his whole name, especially if he's a realtor. He should know that's kind of deceptive all in itself, that he's not using his full real name, where documents can be looked up in his history on developments or properties.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Public hearing remains open.
I would suggest that we table this until those concerns are addressed, and revisit this maybe next month or next meeting.
Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'm John Schlicker. I reside in Harmony Village. I live at 1909 Bluebell Lane. Been here in Stevens Point for 4.5 years, and there's an awful lot to like about Stevens Point. You should be very proud of the city.
Thank you.
You bet. Harmony Village is a 55-plus community, and we have some concerns about this building situation that is taking place, that probably will take place. Our village, we are very proud of the way our village looks. It's well kept. We have a management team of Pfefferle Management. They come in and help us. And we have a 7-member board, which is unusual for these days. Our specific concerns is we're a quiet community, and we would very much like to keep it quiet. And that's why many of us have moved to that community. Our oldest person in the community is 98 years old, and our youngest is like 58. So we are indeed 55 and older. We have 42 units in our subdivision, and we have 3 vacant lots, which are duplex lots. So there could be 6 more buildings put in that property. Our main concern is having people enter the privacy of our property, specifically children, because there are attractive nuisances there. The nuisance being sidewalks to skateboard on, bicycle on, and the pond. You might want to put your fishing pole in your backpack and come over and fish. Wouldn't eat the fish out of there anyway. But we are concerned about that. The other thing we're very concerned about are people walking dogs through our property. People do not read our signs as they come into the unit itself. The signs say private property. The speed limit is 15 miles an hour. And I have to tell you, 9 out of 10 cars going through that down to the nursing homes are not doing 15 miles an hour. They're doing 25 to 30, maybe 35. So we do have concerns about those types of things. I had a meeting with some people this afternoon, and we had some specific concerns, and that is about the refuge site that they proposed to build. And I'm going to refer to my notes here, was in the parcel, page 7, paragraph 10, sentence number 2, a reference structure on the north lot line adjacent to Bluebell Lane. That has our concerns, and basically, why do we need to have a refuge situation there? And why do we not have ordinary garbage pickup like everybody else in our subdivision? They roll their carts out, the garbage people comes and picks them up every Tuesday. And we're very concerned about that. Picture in your mind's eye, if you're in one of the new residences and look north across the street, which is Bluebell Lane, and you see a well-organized community, well cared for, then picture the person who's living across the street from you and looking into your community, will we see the same thing? We are very concerned about that. Thank you.
Thank you.
You bet.
Public hearing remains open. Got this gentleman, then you can come up next, sir.
Hello, all. My name is Zach Brocken. I am the owner of the parcel that we're looking at, and wholeheartedly the owner of North Reserve Property Group. So what everybody's looking at on the screens right now is a preliminary site plan to kind of get this kick-started. Since the application was submitted, we have finalized a little bit of a different plan here that does include full water retention, erosion control, and then grading elevations. So eventually what will happen, just to kind of respond to some of the initial comments, was most of the structures will be shifted north about 20 feet with applicable grading along each one, and all of the water will be retained within the site. The other questions that we had just regarding some of the garbages, an update there is that each building will have their own garbage receptacles, and they will not be using a common area. Again, it was a preliminary plan to kind of see what we could do and what we could shape on the lot given its current structure, and going from there. So I asked everybody's for everybody's input and ultimate approval on this. We are excited to break ground on it. All contractors that are going to be involved are local to the Stevens Point area. And the final product are going to be some high-end, nice finished premises. So thank you all for voicing your concerns, and I appreciate the efforts.
Thank you. Mr. Brocken, we'll call upon you after the public hearing if we need to. Thank you. Public hearing remains open. Sir?
Yeah, okay. Do I identify myself?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm not that familiar. Okay. I'm Jack Meckler, 1927 Lilac Lane, where John came from, Harmony Village. I've been here a little over 2 years. And it was a shame to see all those trees on that lot cut down, okay? That's minor. But I've been in the real estate business on and off. And some of my questions are, again, elaborated from John's. What is the tenancy going to be for these units? They are 3 bedrooms, and what kind of tenants is he looking for to put in here? Are they going to have families? And where are these families going to go? Kids, you know they're going to run. And that's what our concern about. And our Bluebell Lane is a private road, and it's only serviced by us and the homes in the nursing home in the rear. Another minor thing, we live where we are because we have all outside work taken care of. Who is going to be doing the outside yard work on these 5 properties on this whole parcel here? It still seems, even though, does the city have any requirements for necessary lot sizes? It seems to be, yes, they have enough clearance between the houses, but overall, on the number of square feet. Older part of the city, yes, we all know that's cram them together in the old parts. But nowadays, you want to spread out a little bit. Now, are there the requirements allowing something like this here? And it just seems too stereotype. Developer that did it, where we are now, he flipped these units around. They look all different, and even though they're all constructed of the same thing, and these are looking a little bit, to me, I'm gonna say shabby. They got some kind of siding on 3 sides, a little brick or something in the front, minimum windows. I don't know how anybody would want to live in a property like this with the minimum windows. These are things I look at. And one little thing is he didn't develop a room inside, frost-free, for storage, where we have, and it's a very, very welcome room. You can't put the stuff in the garage, and you're not, and also, just come to mind, are there parking restrictions in the city, or would there be here, of leaving vehicles parked outside, vehicles, boats, for the people that would be tending here?
Okay.
I think a number of us tenants there are not too favorable about the whole idea, and I'll end there. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Public hearing remains open. Give him a minute, Ray. Thank you.
When you get over 90, you don't move so fast.
Thank you. Public hearing is still open.
Hi, my name is Raymond Cal. Together with my partner, we own a condo in Harmony Village that we rent. It's where my father-in-law lived for several years before he passed away last year. Couple items I want to address. One is regarding density in the area. If you refer to your document on page 7, the document states that the density of the property is not, the proposed use is less dense than the other residential uses within the near vicinity, including Harmony Village. I don't think that that is factually correct. I have a surveyor's report on Harmony Village. It consists of 11.7 acres. We have a total of 48 units available at Harmony Village. That's if we build out the other 6, which no doubt will happen eventually. When you do the math, Harmony Village has 10,626 square feet for every unit we have. When you consider the large pond, the street area, the sidewalks, the open areas, and the yards, it's 10,626 square feet. The proposal that we have before us is providing 8,389 square feet for the 5 units, so it's a significantly lower number. I would point out that if you drop the density from 5 units to 4, you would still have 10,487 square feet per unit, still a lower density than, a higher density than what Harmony Village has. So I just wanted to make that clear for the Planning Commission from a factual standpoint. Secondly, on page 2 of the document that is in your packet, it says that a turnaround area shall be constructed on the private driveway, subject to the review and approval of the city fire marshal. I look at your plan here and fail to see how you can build a turnaround within those limits unless you were to eliminate 1 unit, in which case you probably could have enough room for a turnaround. Having reviewed your agenda for today's meeting, I noticed that the next item on your agenda is going to be the Walker Street turnaround, where the city has taken great pains with the repaving and reconstruction of Walker Street to figure out how they can pay for, with taxpayer money, a new turnaround on Walker Street. And if you go into those lengths to create a turnaround there, I don't see how you would allow this to go through with no turnaround at all. It's up to you. You guys have to make the policy on turnarounds, but to jump through hoops to have a turnaround on Walker and then approve a plan that I don't see how you could have a turnaround, that isn't logical to me. The trash area, Mr. Brocken has already addressed that, and the fact that trash area is going away, that's fine, but as proposed here, the trash area was going to be enclosed by a fence. And I would just suggest that there are fences and there are fences. If Century Insurance and Century World is building a fence, I'm pretty confident it's going to be a fence that's going to look good, going to last long, and if something happens to it, it's going to be repaired. I see other fences throughout the city that are not quite as well cared for, become dilapidated, and then neighbors have no recourse to address the problem. Hopefully, Mr. Brocken has already addressed that, but I just would call that to your attention. Also, from a factual standpoint, on page 5 of your document, the very last sentence says that the driveway exists off of Reserve Street that will provide access to 9 of the 10 duplexes. I'm confused by that because I thought we had 5 single-family homes, and now here I'm reading about 9 of 10 duplexes. I don't know if that's someone's oversight, mistake, came from some other proposal and wasn't pulled out, but I just want to call that discrepancy to your attention. Those are the only points I would have. Depending upon who lives in these units, it's easy for young kids to think that what they have at Harmony Village is a public park. You have a pond, sidewalks, open area, but it's all private property. And I don't think the residents want their condominium property to end up being viewed as public parkland by young kids. And if I were a young kid, I'd want to mess around in the pond and go up and down the streets on my skateboard too. So I'm very empathetic to that, but I'm just saying you have to keep that in mind as well. I don't know what you can do about it. No landscaping plans here, but obviously I think the landscaping that does get put in between these units and Bluebell, which is where Harmony Village is really critical that that landscaping be sufficient. So that when people everyone comes into Harmony Village on Bluebell. And when people come in, what these properties look like from a landscaping standpoint are going to be what people see as they come into Harmony Village. Thank you. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Ray. Never pegged you for a skateboarder. Thank you. Public hearing is still open.
Good evening. My name is Bill St. John. I live at 2016 Bluebell Lane. And I just have a question. I don't know if it can be dealt with. It's based on something someone just said about down the road that these these could become individually owned properties. And I thought someone said that at that point, access to those properties would come off Bluebell if Bluebell became a city street. I don't know if you can tell us what that would look like, but it would certainly be a change to our properties in Harmony Village.
Thank you. We'll make note of that. Public hearing is still open. Anyone who hasn't spoken yet? Anyone in the overflow room that wishes to speak? Sir, do you see anybody, you standing in the door? Do you see anybody coming? Okay. Sir, if you need to speak again, go ahead.
Again, I'm Ron Oftemower, 2224 Michigan Avenue. Zach, I'm glad you're here. Use your full legal name, first of all. Second, Mr. Brockman did buy that property as commercial and has the right to develop it with a higher density. The property was also down zoned from light industrial to commercial, and I do not want a further down zone on my property to happen and occur because of this. And the drainage is, I propose that we table it so that Mr. Brockman's changes can be in writing instead of just hearsay at this point. And he can get it down. We can take a look at the new layout and revisit this again
Thank you.
Thank you.
Public hearing remains open. Public hearing is still open. And for the legal third and final time, the public hearing is open. Seeing and hearing no one else wishing to speak, I will declare the public hearing closed, and we'll move it back to the commissioners. But before I do, we want to try and address some of the questions. It certainly, to me, seems like because there's changes that aren't fully identified within this agenda, that I think it's probably in our best interest to postpone action or take no action, refer it back to staff, get everything documented, get the landscaping plan, the actual setbacks, and I think that's probably our best course of action. But before we entertain a motion, I do want to move over to Adam and have him address some of the concerns that we saw. First of all, I can tell you that zoning's not going to happen on your property, sir, unless you request it. We don't change zoning on private property unless it's requested by the owner. But Adam, you want to address the if, and these are big ifs, if Bluebell, Bluebird rather, became a public street, and that's a big if, then those lots could have access off of that. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so if Bluebell would become a city street, as the mayor alluded to, and as I alluded to at the beginning, theoretically each of the building, this property could be split into 5 different lots, 1 building on each parcel. I'll make that caveat, I'll make the note in that, any sort of approval to make Bluebell or this portion of Bluebell to be a city street would obviously require approval from our common council. Likewise,
most importantly, a request.
Yes. Likewise, the neighborhood association or whatever sort of government structure that you folks within Harmony Village have. So that's the first comment. Second comment about the notion of a 10-foot setback, 12-foot setback. So the 10-foot setback is the minimum that's required for a rear yard setback. 12 feet is what's proposed. The turnaround comment, that was something that was reviewed from by our city fire marshal. That was listed as a recommended condition that formal specs behind that turnaround are submitted to him for his review and sign off. He did make the note that there would be room in his belief to add an appropriately sized turnaround within the parcel here. The hashed off areas where it notes the setbacks, so like the 10 feet, the 5 feet, the 25 feet, that's for building setback. That doesn't necessarily equate to setback for pavement for the turnaround. Landscaping, the comment there, that was listed as a recommended condition. Likewise with other development projects where if a landscaping plan is not submitted, that's placed as a condition so that plan could be submitted to city staff for review and approval. Density requirements, so the minimum lot size requirement for each unit would be 7,000 square feet. Since the parcel is just shy under 42,000 square feet in size, it would meet the minimum density requirements for the zoning classification, and then the individual lots and the access that we talked about at the very beginning. So that's...
And what I assume that Mr. Cal pointed out, the typo...
Yes, that was an administrative error.
9 of 10. So
yep.
Thank you very much for that clarification. Again, commissioners, I would recommend that we postpone action on this, send it back to staff, get all of these things documented, get the layouts, landscaping plan, and we can take a look at it next month. But of course, that's up to you. Commissioners, what are your wishes? Alderperson Kneebone.
I will make the motion to return this to staff for clarification and then bring back something that's a little bit more accurate to what the final look will be.
I appreciate that. Is there a second? Seconded by Arnson. Discussion on the motion. Yes, sir.
I'm curious about the drainage comments. Yes, it's wet and the wetland delineations, and I know developments can affect drainage and runoff, so I guess that would be one of the things to look into. I presume it's unlikely to be a problem, but that would be good to confirm. And then just kind of echoing on Matt's comment about, and in fact, I talked with you guys today saying, is this 5 single-family houses on one property? Are they going to be rental houses? One of the things we talked about is that ownership, getting that home ownership. And could these things be as condoed out or, get an association or cut up into individual lots? And it sounds like, yes, that can be done. I don't know if that's in the plan, but I guess kind of going on record that that's things that I would, prefer to see and be more enthusiastic about supporting rather than, again, the complications of having one big parcel, somebody owning a bunch of individual houses. Again, the ownership aspect may go a distance towards addressing some of the concerns of saying, oh, these are just renters, they don't have a long-term vested interest in here. So that's a subjective.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Mr. Beacom.
Maybe just to add to that, yeah, I would agree. I mean, home ownership is always key. I don't think we have much control over that here, but single-family homes is a big need. We don't see a lot of that pitched, and so if there's an opportunity to bring more of that to the community, I think that's a good thing.
Any other comments from the commissioners? Staff, do you have enough direction?
Yeah, and we'll obviously listen to the public comments and encourage changes. I apologize, an item like this, when it's not fully cooked, if you will, should not have hit this body. So I'll take responsibility for that, and we'll go back and work with the developer to ensure that a full set of plans is before you in the coming months.
Thank you. With that, the motion is to postpone and send it back to staff. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that is approved. Item number 4 is a request from Bailey Voigt, and that is for representing St. Peter's Parish for a sign variance to install a freestanding sign exceeding the minimum height requirements at a property located at 800 4th Avenue, the parcel identified in your packet, consistent with Chapter 25.14. Adam?
Thank you, Mayor. So the request before you is to install one new monument sign. This would be on the southeast corner of the subject parcel within an existing planter area. So this parcel here for St. Peter's is zone R3 single and 2 family residential. While there are some exceptions within the city sign code as it relates to size requirement, maximum size requirements for non-residential uses when compared to residential uses, there is not a stipulation in place for height. There would be a maximum height allowance of 5 feet, both for residential and non-residential uses. The proposed sign that's shown on the screen would exceed that 5 feet in height, 6 feet in height approximately from the base of the sign. So the request before you all is a variance to exceed that maximum height from 5 feet to the 6 feet as proposed. So staff have looked at the request, the variance request, and would recommend approval.
Thank you. Is there anyone here representing the parish who would like to speak, or the sign company? I mean, it's rhetorical because I can see you both back there. But if you want to add anything, you're welcome to approach.
Gary Gladowski from St. Peter's Parish. The sign is a memorial to my wife, to the parish. So we hope that you would approve.
Thank you, Gary. Commissioners, what are your wishes?
I make a motion to approve per staff recommendations.
Thank you. Seconded by Beacom. Discussion? Comments from the audience? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? And that is approved. It's a wonderful tribute, Gary. Item number 5 is a request from the City of Stevens Point for a preliminary subdivision plat review of a planned subdivision on the property located at 5498 Gala Road with the parcel identified in your packet, consistent with Chapter 20.05 Sub 1. This has already been before this body. Commissioner Miskowiak you hadn't been on this committee previous, but we held a public hearing, took a fair amount of input from some of the neighboring Town of Hull residents. I think there may have even been 1 or 2 city residents in there. It talked about ditch maintenance. There's a drainage ditch there, which happens to be, I believe, a Class 2 trout stream. They were talking about the concern about being overly dense and had requests for some larger lot sizes, public green space or parkland, talking about lighting and the school, whether or not they could support the number of students potentially that were being potentially moving into this subdivision. Also had us look at the roads, and we sent it back to staff. Staff addressed all of those concerns to some extent. Again, this is city property. Our housing study shows that we need housing in the city. The density was addressed. We reduced the number of lot sizes, number of lots rather. The drainage ditch and ditch maintenance, there's an existing easement in place. So that was addressed. We actually made it larger. We're going to have a proposed trail next to the drainage ditch, further securing the already existing easements and addressing the parkland/green space area, which also helps with our 10-minute walk to a park. It fills a small gap in there, so we appreciate the staff looking at that. We did talk to the school. The school says they can certainly handle any proposed or anticipated student population. We did have a evaluation done regarding endangered species and things like that. Nothing came back. So what you have before you is that modified compromise for the preliminary plat that we're seeking approval for tonight. I know there's also been some talk about the possibility of someone buying that property back. And I can tell you that when Mr. Anderson bought the property, he was looking at putting in a subdivision to protect our wellheads. We have oversight over that. We chose to object to that because of the number of septic tanks that would be involved. This subdivision, when Mr. Anderson asked the city if they were interested in buying it, we purchased that property at a premium to make sure that that subdivision was going to be serviced by city sewer and water, thereby further protecting the city groundwater. This is going to help address some of our housing needs, so I don't think at this point we're interested in entertaining an offer for someone else to buy it. We need the housing. Our housing study shows that. So I really want to commend our staff for taking those concerns of the neighbors, bringing it back, making those modifications, trying to address issues like ditch maintenance, the larger lots, the parkland, talking to the school and those sorts of things. So what you see before you is that compromise. Director, did you have anything to add before we go to the public on this?
I'll just provide, as the mayor mentioned, there were about five key issues, and those are addressed within the memo that was provided. Probably most notable is the reduction in density. Went from 72 lots to 60. That went from 2.92 units per acre down to 2.43 units per acre. And really how we accommodated that was we shifted the east-west road on the north side of the property south 35 feet to accommodate for the planned outlot on the north lot line, to address the concerns over the Lost Creek and access for an existing easement to get in there. That caused what is known as compression, so we did lose some zero lot line lots on the unnamed road. And then the other one that we heard quite a bit about as it relates to pedestrian safety was the number of potential driveways on Gala Road. So we went from 18 single-family lots to 11 on Gala Road. It should be noted that in instances where you have a street that fronts both sides of a property, we do always encourage the home to have a driveway backing out onto the less busier or collector street, as an example. So, most of these properties, I think there's 3 or 4 that could have direct driveways onto Gala Road. Most of them will either be on Evelyn, Leonard, or Joe Street, those driveways. And that was requested at the neighborhood's request. So We also, as the mayor mentioned, are looking at adding a pedestrian pathway essentially along the top side of the outlot area. There's what is essentially a large gully at the bottom of it. That's where Lost Creek is, and that at the top of that we would have some type of pedestrian walkway, just another way for us to address some of the concerns of pedestrian movement within the subdivision and the neighborhood, and then also retaining that as city ownership for conservation area, addressing some of the concerns about green space and parkland opportunities, as the mayor had previously mentioned. The proposed outlots, we've provided 3 pretty accessible access points to those 2 outlots that are proposed, one off of Maple Bluff, one off of the Joe Street right-of-way extension, and then of course off of Purlowski Road. We believe that the 15-foot, it says 15-foot easement, that's not really an easement, that's where the pedestrian path will be, but that should be sufficient for those folks who need to get in to manipulate the creek bed to do so. They should be able to get trucks or large equipment in there. As a reminder, state highways are 12 feet wide, and so the idea that you wouldn't be able to fit a dump truck or something down there at 15 feet seems a little bizarre to me, but did work with the attorney for the Summers and trying to address some of their concerns. I firmly believe that we've addressed all of the concerns that have been addressed or been brought up by the neighborhood, and that is why the staff's recommendation is to recommend approval to the Common Council.
Thank you. I know there's a lot of people wishing to speak on this, so I would hopefully remind you of decorum and be cognizant of everyone's time. The legal public hearing has been held already, so I would ask that you limit your comments to the usual 3 minutes. If there are things that someone previous to you said, you can certainly come up and say, I agree with so-and-so. We just want to recognize everybody's time and be as considerate as we can. So with that, I'll open it up for comments, and go ahead. Yep, whoever.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Dave Wills, and I reside at 1909 Mary's Drive. I live in the town of Hull. I've served as an elected official for the past 16 years and as chairperson for the last 3. This is the 4th time that I've attended a city plan commission for this 24-acre parcel over the past several years. The proposed density parcel started at 31, it went to 39, then it went to 82, down to 72, and we're at 60, I believe, with this plat here. And there are really 2 main issues with the current proposal that I would like to highlight and hopefully get you to consider. There are several other concerns related to these 2 main subjects. One main issue from the town's perspective is the unresolved drainage easement issue, which is of high concern. If this drainage district cannot be properly maintained, a huge risk to 150-plus Hull homes in terms of flooding is heightened. We are aware that the main principles of the drainage district in the city are still in discussion, and that's going on right now. The other main issue to the town, and for most of the citizens, I believe, that are here tonight, is the density issue, still at 60 for these 24 acres. And though it's getting smaller, it just seems a little stronger than it needs to be. In alerting the neighboring town residents of the meeting this evening, we sent out 113 invites to 113 addresses in the town of Hull, and that's the surrounding area of this. We send out communication to those that we think may be affected or have interest. This reaction has been quite strong. I point this out because 113 Hull residents covered 250 acres. There's 24 acres here with 60 parcels. It is, compared to the rest of the surrounding, extremely dense, and still is. Jim Anderson of the Anderson Development Company shared a letter with me a bit ago, and a concept that was sent to Director Karnowski on April 10th. And Jim's memo stated the major issues from all sides from the previous Plan Commission meeting. A proposed plat that would hopefully accomplish and accommodate everyone's needs while saving the city nearly a third of infrastructure future cost, and a suggestion to slow down and start with listening sessions. I'm not an engineer, but the report seemed to cover everyone's basic concerns while taking a different approach to the development of this area. This Plan Commission should review that two-page report if you haven't had an opportunity. It's really quite interesting. Mr. Anderson suggested 43 lots in this plat, and boy, I think that would be great. This 24-acre preliminary plat in the approximate 18 acres south of the subject property is the only underdeveloped larger parcels in this area. There's only this 40-some acres. Everything else is developed or platted. The city owns both of these properties. Is that 3?
That's 3, sir.
Okay. The last issue I'd like to, that hasn't been addressed, is the connection from Evelyn Court into Maple Bluff. We asked to have that not done at this time until we know more.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
And I'll be going down and seeing if there's other people that need to speak as well.
Yeah, they can hear.
Yeah. Okay.
There's audio and video in there, so they'll know. I do want to just address a concern, the drainage easement. I think we're really set on this. By keeping this as city outlot and putting in a conservancy, we guarantee that there is going to be no effect on the easement, where if you put it into private hands, as we heard in the last item, things can change. By having the city retain ownership of that, making it green space, I think that easement is more solidified in perpetuity. So with that, whoever wants to make some comments next.
Nick Summers, 292 Maple Bluff. And I would like to read a letter from an attorney that I just received not too long ago. And it's addressed to Ryan Kanowski and Plan Commission. And I don't know if that got to you yet or not, but I would like to read it quickly. First of all, this is our attorney talking to Ryan. First of all, the Summers feel very strongly that 15-feet area from the south bank of the creek to the outlot boundary is not sufficient width to utilize heavy equipment to clear the creek. There is high banks, and you have to reach in to get at them, and this is not going to work. Your report on May 6th states 65 feet was being afforded from the creek center line, 15 feet larger than was requested by the attorney. In fact, my letter of March 29th requested all the area within 50 feet of the drainage ditch bank should be plotted as an outlet. 50 feet would be sufficient. 15 is not. As we discussed, if the 15-foot area is not increased, this will entail the equipment utilizing a portion of the backyards of lots that border the outlot. As you are aware, my client's easement permit them to access the creek for maintenance purpose throughout the entire plotted area. Such a result will undoubtedly be disconnecting to the owners of the lots, who will seek police involvement or otherwise look to the city for assistance. We reiterate our request that the outlot increase afford sufficient work to be done on the outlets. Second, mentioned above, the easements permit my clients access across the entire proposed plot. Those easements are recorded, run with the land, and will be binding against purchase of all these lots. Purchasers of these lots need to be informed of these easements. We reiterate our request that easements be noted on the plat and disclosed on the deeds conveying the lots. I appreciate the city may be hesitant to do so, as it may be viewed as disseminating the saleability of the lots. However, do not do so in simply keeping the buyer in the dark concerning a matter which affects their property. Since this area has been annexed, these will be city residents. The city should work to ensure the residents who are also buyers and are aware of this information. Lastly, we discussed the concerns that a city will not impose permitting or any other regulatory impeachments to my clients' maintenance activities on the creek. They have a right to maintain the creek via their easements. The fact that the city is the owner of the outlets does not change that fact. As such, my client cannot be made by the city to apply for permits, pay fees, tender bonds, or any other security, or take similar action prior to performing any maintenance. During my phone call, I understand that Ryan agreed with this position.
Thank you, sir. Next.
Mike Splinter, 1475 Torn Road, Town of Hull, 12th District, County Board Supervisor. I didn't come here with anything planned because I didn't think they were going to take public comment, so I'll keep it brief, and I'll refer back to my original suggestion of last month, is that you rethink this a little bit. You take that plat up here on the wall and put it on the 40 acres that was, the county was looking at purchasing at one point, a mile northeast of the Crossroads Commons, so it's well within biking distance of grocery stores and everything else. Think about it, put that on half of that 40 acres that you guys have, and let your experiment go without affecting the existing neighborhoods. Stevens Point has a history of kind of experimenting at the cost of the town of Hull. Why don't take it out there, do something. An experiment is something where you take an action or actions and you don't know exactly what's going to come out. And people are concerned out here tonight because they don't know how it's going to affect their neighborhoods, to the good or for the bad. All they know is going to be more traffic. And you got the drainage concerns and a lot of other things that you wouldn't have at the property a mile northeast of Coles, basically. So just think about it, rework it, think about it, and you can have, if that works on that 20 acres or half of the 40 acres that you own, then you have another place you can expand that. And that's not at the cost of messing with anybody's backyard. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're not going to be able to use this beeper on me.
Okay.
Hopefully short. Jim DeWeerd, 5364 Duncan Drive, Stevens Point. I'm concerned the return on investment about this issue, and that's one of the reasons why I think Mr. Anderson gave up the project, because of the sewer and water costs, and they're big. And the only way to make it work is to get more and more homes there. It just doesn't blend in with the neighborhood at all. I agree with the Evelyn Court thoughts, and maybe making that a hammerhead or a turnaround and not coming out onto Maple Bluff Road. And the last thing is, I am amazed at the amount of discontent there is in the neighborhood. All around Easter Brolowski, south of Regent, west onto Maple Bluff area. There's the whole neighborhood. The whole area is not happy with this plan, and unfortunately, we are not city residents, so we really don't have any administrative ability to deal with that. So I would ask that you all take that into consideration, let you sleep on it, and let it touch your heart, because it's the neighborhood that is very, very unhappy with this plan. And I think, as Mike said, there's alternatives where there would be less sewer and water costs, maybe to do a housing development like this that meets the needs of the city. So, thank you.
Thank you. You were right on.
I heard the beeper.
Anyone else? If you're in the overflow room and you wish to speak, come on up.
Don't start the beeper till I get up.
Yours is 2 minutes, Jim.
Minute 56.
Jim Anderson, 305 Maple Bluff Road, and I appreciate the improvements that have been made to this plan from the previous plan, But I need to point out that the density is still way higher than the surrounding neighborhood. I've done some research on this, and I looked at the Pine Bluff neighborhood, which is in the city, Maple Bluff, the Regent Gala area, I call it, east of Brusky, the Georgella subdivision, which is also east of Brusky. I threw in the Whitetail subdivision, which the city did, even though it's not in the neighborhood, but it gives you an idea of the previous densities that the city had. And then I looked at that area south of Regent, the Joe Street area, if you will, and the lots in the Kingfisher Sandpiper area. I'm sorry. When I looked at density, I looked at the land area. I took out roads and I took out green space because Sandpiper, that Regent Gala, and this area has some green space. So I took that out, so we're looking at a level playing field. So my numbers are going to be a little bit different than yours. But the average of all of those neighborhoods that I came up with is 1.55 lots per acre. The city's plan, again, factoring the way I factored it, is 3.74 lots per acre. It's more than double the neighborhood, more than double. And it's 32% higher than the Kingfisher Sandpiper area. So clearly does not fit within the neighborhood. And that's my primary concern. I also did some quick penciling on return on investment. To do this plan, what have we got? You got 3,042 feet of roads. The plan that I submitted to Ryan, which was just a very rudimentary plan, I'm not sure if he shared that with you folks or not.
No.
No. That had less than 2,000 lineal feet of roads. More roads, more cost for infrastructure. More roads, actually less lots. The difference in the lots between my plan and this plan, the difference in the roads is about 5 lots, 5 third-acre lots. And actually, the city's return on investment, it's hard to say exactly what the lots are going to be worth, but I think the city would have probably $300,000 to $400,000 more net income with a less dense plan. Now, I understand there's a need for housing, but the city owns, is it 120 acres of land on Old 18? I'm almost done. Anyway, the city owns property up there. It looks to me like it's about 1,000 feet from sewer and water right now, and I think it's like 2 blocks from the city bus route. Why not consider some high-density housing on that property? Your costs are going to be much, much less. Thank you for considering our views.
Thank you. Anyone else? I want to point out, too, is there was a couple of people that mentioned return on investment. Unlike a developer, and Dave, I'm sure you're aware of this, as a municipality, we're not in it for a profit. We don't have to make a profit. Return on investment is not just dollars. It's providing the needs of the community. So when we talk about return on investment, please understand that the city can break even and still fulfill the needs of the community. Anyone else?
I would like to speak, please.
I don't know who that was, but we'll get to the online people after everyone in person.
Hi, my name is Gail Gollin. I live at 5662 Crescent View Drive in the Eastwood subdivision right across Brusky from the proposed development. My concern is the density. I'm glad to see you've knocked it down, but 60 lots is still a lot of traffic. Most of the traffic will be coming up Brusky because that's the most direct route to there. When I leave my subdivision, I come right on Gala Road to that 4-way stop. Most traffic going north and south on Brusky does not stop. It's either a rolling stop or they just drive right through. And my biggest concern is, okay, 60 lots, that's 121 vehicle coming through. If there's 2 vehicles in each property, that's 240. That's way too much. That's a well-driven road. There's a lot of traffic on there, especially during busy times. And it's very disheartening to see people not stopping at that stop sign, whether they're going straight or they're turning.
Have you contacted law enforcement about that?
No.
that's probably something you should do. If people are rolling through stop signs, that's illegal, and law enforcement needs to know about that. We don't have the ability to have officers everywhere.
No, I
but
believe Town of Hope
neighborhood
has
tips-
contacted them, at least from some information that they've handed out in their spring newsletter.
That's good. Yeah, it happens a lot of places, but we just can't be everywhere all the time. So it's good to have people who watch that and witness that, contacting law enforcement so we know kind of where we can target our presence.
Again, I feel it's a little too dense for the area.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
My name is Amy Anderson. I'm at 319 Maple Bluff, and my biggest concern is the proposed road connecting from Evelyn on to Maple Bluff. I don't know if any of you have actually made it out to this property other than looking at this map, but if you were to walk and or drive down that road and you see where the road is going to come out onto Maple Bluff, it's right after a blind corner. It's very tight, and the river, the creek, I should say, is right next to it. It's just I truly feel if you were to go out and look at it, walk it, drive it, you would see what we're concerned about. It's very dangerous. It's so tight. And again, with the new density, that's going to be a lot more traffic coming through. Is it necessary? If we were to knock, even just by taking out, I think, 2 homes down on that corner, you could have a turnaround for fire department. I understand the need for the safety. I appreciate the fact that you have taken some of our concerns and, you've shortened or scaled down the number of homes, I should say. But in my opinion, if you could scale it down by even 5 more, eliminate that road, I think you would alleviate a huge amount of stress and upset and worry and concern from the neighborhood and the surrounding area. Please go take a look at it. If you haven't driven it or walked it, you just can't understand how terrible it would be to put a road right through there. Thank you.
Anyone else in person? He who hesitates waits.
Okay, you can start. 292 Maple Bluff Road, Diane Summers. I'm again going to speak to that Maple Bluff entrance from Evelyn's Court. If you realize that the green circle is going to come across the Plover River close to 39, or Highway 10, and it's going to come up Ben's Lane, which comes up into Maple Bluff. So you're going to have all these green circle bikers and walkers coming up Maple Bluff, and all these cars are going to be zooming down to Target because there's no stop sign along the way. And right now, it's just such a nice, pleasant way. People are walking their dogs. We went across to Sandpiper, and those people can't walk there because there's cars on the road and too many people. They're coming to our area to walk, and they talked about it, and they don't like that. And those lot line houses there, they don't have enough room in the house, so they put all their junk in the garage. Then they put their cars on the road and in the driveway, and all you see is cars, and there's even a truck there. And we don't want that. I don't think you want that either. You want a nice place for your people to live, and you want nice homes there. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir, you're up.
Kirk Rohalski, 5881 Rainbow Drive. This drainage easement, it was May 7th, 1940 is when it originally, it's very important to us. My kids will be 5th generation with this drainage easement. So I do not want anything compromised with that. This is our way of life. So, thank you.
Thank you. I think you set a record.
I don't think I'll be that short.
All right.
My name is Ralph Bianchi. I'm a lifelong appraiser, real estate developer, and was a realtor in Stevens Point for some 55 or 60 years. I did develop Pine Bluff Glen to the north, which is just attached in the north of Maple Bluff Addition. And that is 26 acres with 12 lots, 2.5 acre lots. The city insisted on that when I developed it. They took it into the city. I realized that it was septic, sewer, and not sewer and water, but nevertheless, it's 2.5 acres. Maple Bluff Addition has lot sizes varying from a low of 2.25 acres to 4.5 acres, all along Maple Bluff, both sides of the road. I presently live on Amber Avenue in the city of Stevens Point on a 0 lot line that has approximately 1/2 acre. There are some single-family homes in that development and many duplexes and 0 lot lines, all in the 1/2 acre size, some even slightly larger. The subdivision immediately to the north of that, Eastwood, I think is the name, those are approximately 1/2 acre. People have moved out there so that they could build on a lot that was 100 to 150 feet in frontage, have their 3 bedrooms and their 2-stall garage. And if you'll notice, most of the new homes being built today are 3-stall garage. They've got 2 cars and a boat. There's no way on these small lots, 45 feet, 50 feet frontage with 3,500 square feet, that you can build a 3-bedroom home with a 2 or 3-stall garage. When you take the lot line of 8 feet on one side and 10 or 12 feet on the other side, that leaves you 30 feet for a house. You got 12 feet for a garage, that leaves you 18 feet for a house. It's got to be small. It's not conforming to the neighborhood, and I thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. I should point out that my lot is 50 feet by 100 feet. I have 3 stalls with a boat, a pontoon, with a truck, my wife's car, a 4-wheeler, and a motorcycle. I think I have too many things.
Steve Burleski, Burleski Road.
Thanks.
I am a 5th-generation stake owner, and when I sit and listen to all this and I look at this project, it comes to my mind right away from growing up here, sharing a history along Burleski Road, that this project does not fit the community and how the community has been developing over the years. It just doesn't fit. It's too, again, population, the density keeps coming up. I understand that that's all being driven. You see you don't have any profit margin. Well, the reason you've got the density is because you got to pay for the sewer. Maybe, in my mind, when I'm sitting here, when the city decided to be developers, they should have had these meetings before they purchased land and had this impact on our whole community. So I want to say thank you to everybody, Nick, everybody that came up, Mike, he did a very good job. This is very important to me, but it's very important to everybody else here. It's not a good fit for our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in person? Once I move past the in-person, we won't be coming back.
Dana Van Order, 420 Maple Bluff Road. 3 things. I'm watching the 6 a.m. news this morning, and Stevens Point is the Arbor Day leader of everywhere. And you guys are going to tear down trees to plant trees, is what I'm hearing. That whole lot is going to be destroyed, all those trees there, but we are the #1 for planting trees. So that's #1. Number 2, elementary teachers never get asked, what does it feel like to have 10 extra kids in your kindergarten classroom? But administration and people from the outside look in and they think, oh, not a problem, we'll just throw some more kids into the school. But the teachers are the ones that have to deal with that. And from an elementary school teacher for many, many years, the teachers are the ones that are going to have the impact. Now that I'm a 8th grade math teacher, the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. You're going to have all those people rushing to get home on a Town of Hull serviced road with no sidewalks, very, very small amount of passing, barely 2 cars can fit by with people out there walking their dogs. And then you're going to have people getting home because the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. They're going to be coming straight down Maple Bluff in a hurry to get home, and that is, in my opinion, the most detrimental thing because we are not addressing the whole point of the increased traffic on Town of Hull roads. And I haven't heard that being addressed at all in all the comments that we were talking about at the beginning. I have not heard that addressed one bit on the impact that the Town of Hull roads is going to have to implement or support for all of the people that are going to be accessing this little development. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in person?
Joe Arnold, 712 South Maple Bluff Court. I live just south of this. 2 years ago, I bought my house, chose this community for a reason. I have no stats for you other than the number 4 and growing. That is my family. Some of you might see me walking around with my wife and my 2 kids in our stroller, a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. 3-year-old loves to scream at the top of his lungs and sing happy birthday to every neighbor he sees. That's me. We avoid Burlesque. We avoid the frontage road because of how busy those places already are. This is what's accessible to everybody else in this neighborhood. We have to cross Burlesque to get to said green space park, okay? We don't want to cross that road. It is extremely busy. I can see putting houses there. When I saw the plot markers go up, I knew exactly what was happening. I grew up on 220 acres, very similar area to this, just west of Wisconsin Rapids. Again, I chose this place for a reason. I can see homes. We need to expand. There is no doubt about that. People want to move to this area the same reason I did. This will be destroyed, and I will want to avoid even walking on those new roads there because they are going to be even busier than Burlesque already is. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Anyone else in person? I'm waiting just in case there's anyone else in the overflow room. Ma'am, in the doorway, do you see anybody coming down? Okay, thank you. Go ahead, sir.
My name is Jeff Selesky. I live on 225 Burlowski Road. And I guess I wanted to make a comment to the one woman before that talked about all the traffic at Burlowski and Gala. I live at that intersection, and it's just short of a war zone. So I guess I moved there 20 years ago, and I made a decision. I guess when it came to Stevens Point, I said I could live in the city where homes are right on top of each other, or I could move out in the country in the town of Hull, and that's why I moved there. So I'm sad to see that you're planning a development next to this that doesn't meet, people have said doesn't meet the density. And I did the same thing as Jim in the subdivision that I'm in, and every lot is at least 0.75 acres. And this is right across the street from where you're talking about doing this. So the first comments that I sat in the meeting were, I think the director said that these were the same densities as the area. I couldn't believe you said that. So I guess I don't want this development at all. I think you have some other options that aren't close to neighborhoods like this that you can try this high density that you said that the city needs. So I want you to vote no and not have this development at all. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in person?
Karen Hannon, and I live at 465 Burlowski Road North. I have one question about the green space. You talk about walking trails, but I don't see any playgrounds in this subdivision. And I'm wondering if there's a reason?
There's not a park in this subdivision yet.
Yeah.
But once we have that trail established.
Do you really think a trail along the creek is a great place for little kids to be playing?
No, but ma'am, I have established a 10-minute walk to a park, and almost all of this proposed development is within 10 minutes walk of another park.
And how are these kids going to get to this park? Will they be crossing Burlowski Road?
The same way they do now?
Will they be crossing Burlowski Road?
They may, if they
They'd
cross
have to.
Burlesky Road to get to that park.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't understand why you couldn't put a park in there, a playground area.
We certainly could.
I think
We'll take that under advisement. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it certainly makes sense that we could add some playground equipment as long as we don't affect the easement. Anyone else in person? Last call in person. Ma'am, still no one coming? No, they can hear us. I just want to see if anybody's walking down the hallway. I don't want to cut anybody short. Thank you very much. All right, we had a few people online. Let me go here. What is this? Monica Heitzman, go ahead.
Hello, I'm Monica Heisman, 8570 Greenway Boulevard, Middleton, Wisconsin. I am one of the 4 owners of the 46-acre woodlot north of this plat line off of Burlesky Road. Thank you so much for trying or attempting to do some habitat, to gain some habitat information. I greatly appreciate that. I am wondering if there is a necessity to put a culvert at the end of Joe's Road and having Joe's Road continue on to our property. If that's a necessity to have that road continue on, if it couldn't stop at the location of the easement and not having a culvert put in at that location and extending the road, I'm not sure how many more feet to dead end at our property. We are delighted that there will be a green space. We had talked amongst my sisters and myself to do something of the same in memory of my father, Achilles Sarowski, who is the previous owner of that particular property. At this time, we have had difficulty with people coming onto the property. Someone chopped half a cord of wood, and we went by and thought, well, we'll go get our trailer and pick up said wood and take it home, and it was gone. I'm not sure what we're going to do about that. We haven't decided what we're going to do with that woodlot. But my concern is that we would like Lost Creek to have its pristine maintenance, pristine ability to have it be the trout stream. It is Class 1, and what it's utilized for is for spawning. The trout will come up in the areas where the water is and spawn, and there isn't like you can go and see big trout in Lost Creek. I understand that. So I'm just wondering if there could be consideration to have Joe Street stop where the house lots will be stopped at the easement, not to create the culvert in Lost Creek and continuation of that road to Burlesky. Thank you for your time and consideration, and I hope all goes well.
Thank you, Monica. Anyone else online wishing to speak? You can raise your virtual hand or send me a message in the chat. Okay, I think that ends it. So thank you all very much for your input. We appreciate the concerns, and I hope you understand that we have gone to some lengths to address some of those. We're not going to fix everything because, as a few people said, they just don't want the development at all. And I think I mentioned this last month that this is going to fill a need for the city. We need to develop that. We can do it a little more efficiently because we don't have to make that profit, as some people did. We also have maintained that we create the outlot, we're creating some green space, addressing the concerns that were addressed or brought up last month. I think that it's important to note that the people who live around the area live in the town hall for a reason. It's a block or two away from all the things that the city has to offer without the city tax rate. There's advantages there, and I like that, right? I think what you're doing is completely okay. I would consider it myself at some point. But you have to understand that this isn't the town of Hull. This is going to be the city. And the city has denser homes. People want that. They want that neighborhood feel. And I think we've gone to a pretty good length to address some of the major concerns, protecting the easement and perpetuity. I don't think we can get much more solid than that. Reducing the density, I understand it's not what Mr. Anderson had proposed, but again, Mr. Anderson needed to make a profit over it, and that was proposing city water wells and septic tanks, which the city can't allow that. We need to protect our water supply. I'm sure those of you in the town of Hull, you get your water tested, you understand how important that water quality is. That's something that we have to strongly consider with every proposal, even those within the town of Hull. So I think that the staff has done an excellent job trying to address some of those concerns, and just again a reminder that this isn't rural, and honestly the bordering areas to this aren't really rural either. They're close enough to the city where you still get to enjoy all of those amenities using the city streets and those sorts of things. So I appreciate everybody speaking and taking the time to join us tonight. Commissioners, I'm going to bring it back to you. What are your wishes?
Can we ask clarifying questions?
Absolutely.
Too quick. When did the city purchase this from Mr. Anderson?
I believe it was January of 2024.
Okay. And the other question is just...
Wait, 23. Yeah,
sorry.
because it is 24.
Sorry.
To the question about Evelyn Court and Maple Bluff Road, I'm assuming that has to go through extensive study and making sure that that's been reviewed. Can the director or staff speak to that a little bit?
Sure. Yeah, and there's a few reasons that planners have kind of gone through the ebb and flow of subdivision design. For a long time, connectivity was really important up until about the 1970s, and that's when we saw the advent of the cul-de-sac and a lot of inaccessible areas because of how our subdivisions, our neighborhoods were designed. In the last probably decade or two, we've gone back to the idea of connectivity being a really important piece of urban planning. And so adding the Evelyn Court up to Maple Bluff Road achieves part of that connectivity. If you live on Maple Bluff Road, which is a dead end, and you want to walk or bike and get to Joe Street, it's a much more direct route now because you've got that right of way, you've got the ability to do that. For me, from a planning perspective, I always look at it from the 6-foot view, the walkers, the bikers, the folks walking with their kids or their dogs, and having that connectivity is really important. But if you look at it from a larger traffic perspective, if you were to take the Evelyn Court extension out, and now you've just got 3 roads that dump into Gala Road, and Gala does serve as a neighborhood collector, but now you're dispersing even more traffic onto Gala Road, and we heard from the folks last time that was also a concern of theirs. And so by having some type of access onto Maple Bluff Road via Evelyn Court, you do have some additional traffic dispersion onto Maple Bluff. Maybe somebody's taking their kids to school in the morning and that's the route they choose to go. Most of the folks in this subdivision, I can reasonably suspect, will get on Gala Road or that unnamed road on the north side to Burlowski, go to Highway 10, and go to wherever they need to go. But that connectivity is really important, and I think one of the previous speakers brought up the Joe Street extension to the north lot line. It is not the city's intention as part of this plan to culvert Lost Creek and put a bridge in connecting there. The road will stop at the intersection of the unnamed road and Joe Street, but that right-of-way exists so that in the future, if that area on the north side becomes developed, that if we wanted to put the infrastructure in for a bridge and culvert Lost Creek, that the ability is there to do so. Otherwise, what you've essentially done is forced people to walk either on Burlowski Road or find some other way to go around to get to this part of the community. Having that connectivity is really important from just a city planning perspective. And so that's why that was included. I would discourage this body from changing that connection piece. I think putting a cul-de-sac there when you've got a road stone's throw away is foolish, and I think we would look back on that and say, what in the world were we thinking? As opposed to right now, that connectivity is addressing some of the concerns that planners have with accessibility to the whole neighborhood.
Anything else? Mr. Beacom?
I'd make a motion to approve as presented.
Thank you. Is there a second? We'll give the second to Mr. Miskowiak. Any discussion? Alderman Bone.
I live on Sandpiper Drive. People walk their dogs on Sandpiper Drive. People walk on Sandpiper Drive. I used to walk that mile loop until the arthritis everywhere got too painful. I like that neighborhood. I wish my lot size was smaller. I don't want to maintain a half-acre lot. And you have that choice, and there are choices in this plat. There are small lots and large lots. There are options for people like me, older, don't want to get out and mow and constantly fight the deer and the rabbits and the turkeys for a garden. People have options. Employers need employees. Employees need housing. The city needs to grow. The city needs to maintain its tax base and expand it so we don't have quite the burdens that we do, all of us in the city, on our property taxes. Two of my constituents, one on Walter Street and one on Sandpiper, actually contacted me to let me know they were in support for that very reason. The city needs to grow. The city needs economic opportunities. And you know, there's been a lot of dissing of my neighborhood, and I don't appreciate it. I like the density. I like being close to my neighbors. If we did anything else, we'd be accused of urban sprawl. Why are you going out putting one house on a 2-acre lot? Those don't pay for themselves. These do in the end, and that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Commissioners, anything else?
Well, I just have a question, and I think a big thing, the most objective thing is the protection of that drainage way. And, you know, there's all talk about maintenance. How much maintenance has been done? How often do they require a big excavator to come out there and clear it out? I went and looked at it and walked it, and it doesn't look like it's been disturbed very much. I think that the existing drainage way is sufficient to handle anything that the parts on the east side are going to convey. And if they look at that drainage way east of Brulowski as the ideal, that certainly isn't what you'd want to see. I mean, this looks to be a natural, free-flowing stream. I think we brought it up. I don't know if it's been finalized. I think it's a navigable water and thus subject to Corps of Engineer DNR things. So, you know, have permits. Ryan brought that up. Have permits been obtained by the folks who maintain the drainage district? What has been done in the past? That's kind of a rhetorical question. I don't think it really matters. I don't think this has been a problem maintaining, and so, but I do think that is probably the key issue of all of this, and I think that we have addressed it. Again, as I've said previously, I don't know if I agree with the walking trail along it. I think you could just leave it unimproved, and you know, there's walking trails now and people will use it, but I had concerns about, you know, putting a pedestrian corridor through people's backyards and what that's going to be. The other big issue that I've heard is the public safety, and whatever we can do to that would help. I had suggested maybe a pedestrian corridor and not a vehicle traffic corridor at Evelyn Court and Maple Bluff. But you know, I don't know, and this is where I would defer to Ryan and those folks, the traffic engineers. They would know best, and so I'd back off that one. The other one is we got a sidewalk along Gala, and that seems to be the main traffic corridor, the hazardous one. And so whatever we could do to either slow up traffic, or rather than just a 4-foot sidewalk, is that where we want an 8-foot pedestrian path that you could have bikers and strollers and walkers and dogs all at the same time and still remain out of that main traffic way? And is there kind of incidental ways that we could slow up traffic? I mean, again, the concerns is people are racing down Gala. Well, they're not supposed to. How could we slow that up? I don't think we want to put speed bumps there, but it seems to me if you got a bunch of residences along a road, drivers will tend to slow down. If it's not, then they tend to go fast. So this is a preliminary plat, and I believe that's what the motion was, to approve the preliminary plat. That would leave leeway for changes to be made. If we want to add a park, if we want to rethink things, you know, I think that option is good and out there, and you've heard lots of comments, but I
Thank you.
agree.
Appreciate it. Anyone else?
Yeah, I'll add my own comments. Again, I feel pretty strongly about the project in general. Even when we were looking at it originally, Mr. Anderson's project a number of years ago. Again, the city needs housing, and a number of you have expressed that you can appreciate that. So thank you. This a comment I think I made a number of years ago is we can't let perfect get in the way of good, and I think by and large this is a good plan. I understand people's concern about density. It seems scary. It seems different. Change in general is scary and different. A commenter tonight said there's vocal opposition. We've polled people. I can tell you, for those of you who wouldn't have been at other Plan Commission meetings, that's true pretty much every time anything gets proposed. People don't want their neighborhoods to change. People have suggested, try this somewhere else. We have been trying it in other places. We've put in hundreds of apartment residences in the city. We've put in a number of single-family homes and two-family homes. The city is doing this. I think there's a sense that you're feeling singled out a little bit, and it is happening to you. I mean, it is happening near your homes, but know that the city has to grow. The city is going through this evolution, and by and large, it's happening kind of to all of us. In some years or some decades, it happens in certain places in the city more so than others. This one is happening near your homes. And I don't say in your backyard because it's really only immediately adjacent to 4 or 5 homes. Will this add traffic on some streets near your homes? Very likely. It's a lot of residences, it's a lot of properties and car owners. Will it add traffic to the neighborhood to the east of Brzezinski? Probably pretty unlikely. Will it add significant traffic on Maple Bluff Road north of Evelyn Court? Probably pretty unlikely. On Gala Road? Maple Bluff Road is a dead end. There's no reason for cars to travel north beyond this subdivision. On Gullah Road, to Mr. Arnston's point, there probably will be somewhat significant increase in traffic, but again, adding housing, adding driveways, and we've limited the number of driveways. People will tend to drive slower than they do right now. I've driven down Gullah Road. It feels like a little wooded racetrack. Add housing in there, add a couple driveways. People will drive differently than they do right now. Again, I commend the city for making some strides here. The suggestion that they haven't looked elsewhere at other opportunities in the city, I think is inconsiderate. These people are professionals. They're looking for opportunities all the time to do the right project, and this is as close to the best project that we have in front of us right now. I commend the city for making some adjustments. I think this is close. To Mr. Arnston's point, it is preliminary. If there's opportunity for improvements still, I would certainly recommend or welcome any changes that the city thinks would be appropriate.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any last comments? Yes.
I just wanted to mention, we did just set aside a 30-acre woodland just immediately east of the soccer fields, the Hall Nature Reserve. And that will remain preserved in perpetuity. So we aren't just destroying nature willy-nilly. We're trying to maintain places where we can.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I guess one more comment and following up on Matt's and some of the comments here, they said, what would you think if somebody put a development, right next to you and, if somebody put in a big apartment complex? I live on the north side. We voted recently on a couple big apartment complexes. And so here, you got my north side lot that's 0.15 acres or so, all pretty small, right next to each other. And like Mary said, we like the neighborhood. We get along pretty good. We walk around and we don't need these big lots. And yes, now we got apartments just at the end of the street there. And, ideally, it would be magic land, but it's not. We need the residential housing, and we're figuring out ways to do that. And we do apartment complexes. We got the senior living. I'd like to see more condo type things, emphasize that home ownership, and that's what this is going to be. This is going to be home ownership. It's not going to be trailer park. We've heard reference to that. These are going to be expensive lots and small lots. Old folks, I'm getting to be an old folk. If I didn't already have a small house on a small lot, I'd look for one. And this way you can get a small lot, you can build a small house, you can make it old person friendly with the arthritic and the wheelchairs and all that. So
all right, now we're getting personal.
That's right.
Yeah, but anyway, there's potential here. So, right, there is some dissatisfaction, but there is a reason and a reasonability, I guess, for this type of layout. Smaller lots, bigger lots, natural areas that. And I've looked at it a fair bit too, probably more so than I've looked at any other development here. And I guess I appreciate
that. Any other comments? Okay, hearing none, the motion is to approve the preliminary plat of the Forest Creek subdivision as presented. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that is approved. Thank you all very much for coming. Item number 6 is a request from the City of Stevens Point to grant an electric underground easement to the Wisconsin Public Service Corporation for a property located at 601 Mason Street with the parcel identified in your packet. Director Karnowski.
Actually,
hang on. Why don't we just pause for a second, let people who need to get out, get out.
Good.
Yeah, let's give it another minute.
Dave's going to stay, though.
He's a glutton for punishment.
Number 9.
Okay.
I figured.
Sure. All right, go ahead, Director.
Pretty straightforward request for an underground easement, essentially connecting and rebuilding the electric facilities underneath the driveway from Mason Street to the city's wastewater treatment plant. Easement is included within your agenda packet. Staff recommends approval as presented. This was presented to the Community Development Office from the Utilities Office. They have also recommended approval.
Director, sorry to put you on the spot, but what consideration does the city get? What advantage to the city do we have here? Typically, we charge a fee for easements.
Yeah, I'm not certain. I know Director Lemke was in here. In this instance, the
Director Lemke, if you're here, let me know. I think he's going to be here.
Yeah, the other argument is when you underground utilities, it prevents, future outages, especially at wastewater facilities. You don't want sewage backups, things of that nature. So that is likely the proposal, but that consideration will go before finance if there is one.
Let me ask you this. Is there a pressing issue for this? Because I'd really like to get Director Lemke's input, and I apologize. I know I told him he probably didn't need to be here, but I wanted to. At the beginning. Was he?
Yeah, I did see him.
Director Lemke, are you still here?
I don't think he left.
I can text him. He's not here? Okay. So again, is there a
my
pressing issue here?
My understanding, this is a pressing issue, namely because of the Southside Street reconstruction project is well underway. That's why it was put on the agenda.
Okay. Commissioners, what are your wishes?
I'd move to approve.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Kneebone. Discussion? Comments from the audience? Anyone online? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? And that is approved. Item number 7, and before I get started on there, I'm going to talk a little bit about items number 7, 8, and 9. We recently became aware of a practice that we have been doing since before I was alderperson with processes. And after reviewing the state statutes, there's an area in the state statutes that requires the Plan Commission to make recommendations. Most of you are familiar with making recommendations on the purchase or disposal of property. It's, again, just a recommendation. It also requires the Plan Commission review for a plethora of other things, and I use the word plethora very loosely. It's a lot, and we're gonna try and hash it out. So the next 3 items are really more erring on the side of caution rather than potentially creating a problem further down the road. Item number 7 is consideration of a hammerhead design at the end of Walker Street for the reconstruction project. Honestly, that project should have been underway already. However, there was some concern about the hammerhead and whether it's road right away or what it's going to be. So the Parks Commission reviewed it, unanimously approved the hammerhead design. Council reviewed it subject to Plan Commission recommendation to try and get that process, just keep it moving. So what we're looking for tonight is just an approval of the hammerhead concept at the end of Walker Street so we can get the process started. All of staff have spoken in favor of it. As I said, the Park Commission unanimously approved it. I believe, an alderperson, correct me if I'm wrong, or director, I think the council unanimously approved the hammerhead design subject to Plan Commission review per state statute.
That's the way it went, yep.
So,
I guess I have a question regarding the running things by the Planning Commission. Is it just means, does the Planning Commission have to approve it, or do they simply need to review it and comment on it?
So I'm not the city attorney, but I'm going to take liberties as one because we've talked about this quite a bit already at staff. We're not 100% certain yet. We need to have our city attorney review it a little bit further and what exactly the state statute defines. Right now, the state statute says review.
Right. And that's how some of it goes. We review some things, but then it goes to council and they can choose or not, right?
Right.
So.
Yeah, and again, we're doing these next 3 items as a precautionary measure because, again, this road project should have been started already. The bid has already been approved. We just realized that we should probably go through the Plan Commission for review. And that's the same with the next 3 projects. We're not 100% certain they need to be reviewed, but we're doing it again. Oh, hey, Logan's here. Hey. Sweet. I wasn't sure if you were here. I apologize. I'm going to let the city attorney speak to city attorney things.
I'm like Beetlejuice. You say my name, I show up. So to be a little more specific about like what my thought process is on this, suppose that the Plan Commission in the past has acted on a like planning documents for the sewer system in general. And it shows here is the future extension that we are contemplating of this system in terms of geographic extent. Well, would that satisfy the need for the Plan Commission to review, quote unquote, review the location of those types of utilities? The sort of other end of that spectrum would be, here are actual engineering documents showing the precise depth, diameter, materials, angularity, et cetera, of the systems themselves. Well, there's not a ton of immediately available info to explain whether the statute requires you to be reviewing something that's fleshed out to that level of specific detail, or something that is more about just the raw geography of we're going to put systems in these places, or something in between. So figuring out exactly where that line kind of lies is going to be what I'm looking at here over the next couple weeks. And going forward, we'll just sort of add those things to the checklist of items that we incorporate into the materials that go before this body so that we can ensure that you're satisfying all the requirements in that regard.
Thank you. So, up for consideration is the hammerhead design at the Walker Street reconstruction project. The information is in your packet. Commissioners, what are your wishes?
Move to approve.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Rice. Discussion.
Just one comment. I know this is the least, the neighborhood folks are really concerned about the disruption to the woodlot, and this is the least disruptive to this old growth woodlot that's over there. So the park board was satisfied with it, and in terms of preservation, whatever does the least damage is the best way, I think. So
these aren't just extensions for driveways in
Correct.
the future.
Correct.
Because, I got to thinking about it, and I looked at that parcel. I was looking a little bit at the park stuff, and that's kind of the east side of Blue Gold Park and kind of random vacant city land. And we get all these complaints about, how come you're developing out here? Why don't you develop in town? And I didn't know if that might be a consideration in there. And I think this kind of nixes it. I think the parks folks stepped up and said, no, that's part of Blue Gold Park. And it would be those trails going through that little wooded portion that I'd say you don't need finished trails in the Forest Creek subdivision. People will make their own, and that will suffice, and they'll travel it in nice weather, and it'll be muddy, and people won't travel it in sloppy weather. So I'm good with that. So thanks.
Thank you. And let's not forget the young lady who built a tree fort on that property without a proper permit.
We got her. We got her, folks.
Get her? Big
got her.
permit.
Citations.
I don't know if you saw it. She was just amazing, talking about how she plays in the park and made a little fort out of branches and stuff. I remember doing that stuff when I was a kid too, but permits weren't required back then.
Right. No.
Insurance and everything.
All right. Any other comments?
Couple questions, maybe. The hammerhead design is an asphalt design. Is that an asphalt area? Is it significantly
Was it
less
gonna be asphalt or
asphalt
gravel?
than connecting Walker to Wadley?
That is not in the proposal. The hammerhead design was suggested because heavier equipment, garbage trucks and fire trucks, right now would have to back up down that street. So the turnaround was proposed to allow that. The extension of that turnaround to any other street has not been discussed, and nor is it really on the table. Okay?
It meets the requirements for the fire department, and they prefer this to a cul-de-sac, actually, from my conversations with Chief Moody. But it will comply with what they need for their equipment and standards for the fire service.
Okay. Great. The motion before you is to approve the hammerhead design. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? And that is approved and put to rest. Item number 8 is consideration of road alterations for a segment of Prairie Street between Bliss Avenue and Mason Street with retention of city right-of-way. Again, the changes in the road reconstruction project, which has already been approved, are minor. Honestly, the hammerhead design is probably the most change out of any of these 3 items. So again, to be on the safe side, we brought it to the Plan Commission just in case, so we can be sure and comply with the state statutes. So information is in your packet. What are your wishes?
I'll make a motion.
We'll give the motion to Arnson, second to Beacom. Discussion? Mr. Schrader, do you want to comment on this? Okay. Thanks for showing up, Tom. All right.
I thought there was free food or something.
There is, but that's in the police department. Any comments from the audience or anyone online? Okay, seeing and hearing none, if you're in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that is approved. Item number 9 is consideration of the extension of public utilities for the development of the Forest Creek subdivision. As City Attorney Beveridge had stated, because we have a plat review, we could assume that utilities are going to be extended there. However, it wasn't specifically acted on. So again, being more safe than sorry, of course, we're going to research that, or I should say Logan's going to research that, and we'll bring something back so we have more of a guideline of what does and does not need to be approved. Director?
Yeah, I do think there's something interesting here for the Plan Commission to think about. So as we physically develop the city, cities will grow up and will grow out, much like all of us, right? And so in this instance, thanks for catching my joke there, folks. It's been a long night. In this instance, we have what's known as deep sewer and water main in Joe Street going north to the unnamed road on the north side of the proposed subdivision. And what that is it's oversized appropriately for future expansion outward on the northeast side of the city. So that will go up Joe Street to the unnamed road, will go east to Brulowski and dead end there. But as development occurs outside of this area, we have the capacity within the sewer and the water mains to ensure that as growth occurs, we're not going back in to reconstruct pipe to ensure that the new development is able to handle within those utilities. This sewer is also planned for the idea that as the areas east of Brulowski need city sewer and water, we know that there's some nitrate considerations in that Georgella subdivision. We have the capacity to extend those sewer and water laterals and pipes into that subdivision for future development needs. So I do think this is an interesting piece because we are planning for growth in the northeast portion of the city. It's not going to happen in 5 years or 10 years, but in the next 50 years, I think it's not unreasonable to expect something like that to occur. And Joel's department and the Community Development Office and Public Works does a really nice job of ensuring that as land develops, we have the appropriate utilities and road configurations for that. So that is something I'd like to talk about with this group.
Commissioner Ernst.
I guess a clarification, stormwater isn't included, and I know when I got new utilities in my north side, I had to pay for a new stormwater utility. I was thinking that that was just a routine part of all utility development, but apparently not.
No, you are correct. That's not. On Ridge Road, for example, there's no stormwater. We recently did put in swales for stormwater abatement. But yes, storm sewers do not exist in all parts of the city. Even on the north side, there's some gaps.
Right. Those are just unimproved
Frederick and
ones.
Wadley, I think, is one of the big ones where we don't have access to a storm sewer there because of the configuration.
Right.
But Director Lemke, who was here earlier, went home after the item that he thought he needed to be here for was here. He actually came back, so I'm going to let him address that. But you are correct. That's
Well,
not
but
everywhere.
and it's not just the underground and the city stormwater utility, but that goes back to the whole plat, and I don't know if it's been discussed. I think early on we talked about it, but you're putting a whole bunch of impervious surface in a currently undeveloped area. You got a whole bunch more different runoff. I haven't seen any plans about how that's going to be managed. I mean, it's pretty sandy stuff. I'm not overly concerned about it, but you're still going to have some runoff going towards that drainage way. And this brought up the higher question, where does the stormwater run off? I assume Plover. Some of it goes to Wisconsin River. Where's the dividing line there? But anyway, thanks.
Commissioner, I appreciate your insight on that. That's one of the reasons we asked you to serve on this, because you're one of the leading water experts in Portage County. So thanks for the question. I'm going to turn it over to the director.
I was going to say we've worked it out so it'll never rain over here. But no, so basically being right here works pretty well to describe anything kind of east of Washington School over here is all non-traditional infrastructure stormwater management, right? It's not the pipe in the ground, the catch basin that connects to it, and an outfall to a river. So all the roadway stuff we can really easily handle in about 95% of the city with swales. And when that's not sufficient, it might take a little more property and we get into like a pond, but even that's pretty rare. So everything out here, that impervious surface that is in the right-of-way, we will more than be able to handle by using the space in the right-of-way as biofiltration, a vegetated swale for stormwater management.
So you're not looking at building infiltration basins, stormwater ponds, anything? You think just the swales and the sandy soils will handle all that? I assume it's been modeled, and
Right.
you guys agree with that?
Yeah, and there's no outfall needed here, so we're not conveying water anywhere. We're not moving it from this place to that place in order to make an outfall into a river that might take nutrients there or suspended solids or anything. So it's all in-place treatment.
All right, good.
Thank you, Director. Chairman Wills, did you want to comment on this one at all, or are you just hanging out for?
Just hanging out to see what this was.
Appreciate it. Any other concerns? If not, I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve as presented.
Thank you. Is there a second? Seconded by Arnson. Any further discussion? Comments from the audience? I'm sorry, Commissioner Rice.
Just quick confirmation, I mean, this is traditional, like gravity-fed sewer, not like pressurized sewer like we've seen by Century, correct?
Right, this will be the upper end of the gravity sewer. Anything north and east of here, we'll probably have to plan for it being the lower end, and it'll pump into this gravity. But that won't involve a long distance force main, it'll just be a lift, and then gravity again.
Got it. Thank you.
That's really scary to think about. I had never actually considered it until you mentioned it, Commissioner Rice, but forced sewers, pressurized sewers, that could get dangerous. All right, Commissioners, any other comments? Again, back online or in the audience, any comments? Hearing none, the motion is to approve. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And that is approved. Thank you, Commissioners, for your consideration there. Item number 10 is our Director's report, and I will, is the Director going to be doing this?
I guess I could.
Okay.
Yeah. It's in my title, at least. So we did accept, or I'm sorry, we will be recommending accepting a low bid for the Shopco demolition. Those bids were due last week, Thursday. We had, I think, about 10 bids. Had one that was very favorable for the city, a company that the city's comfortable working with, I think, is a really important piece of that. So that'll be before finance this month, which leads me into my next comment of we have a couple of large projects that are finally coming to a close, namely the targeted area master plan for the downtown area. May 14th at 6 p.m. at the Mid-State Technical College. We'll have a joint meeting similar to what we had in January with the targeted area master, I'm sorry, for the Shopco redevelopment area, to review that and then also look at finalizing some of the Shopco redevelopment plans. So that's moving forward, which is really exciting for your city staff, and I think is a really well-needed plan and redevelopment plan for the downtown area. And then finally, the city staff did receive a request from members in the Portage County Business Park for the creation of a business improvement district. So we are working with them on the initial operating implementation plan. You might be asking yourselves, why am I involved in this? Well, the Plan Commission ultimately has to make a recommendation to the council. So it'll be before you likely this summer. So, and there's also a chance I will not be here for the June meeting as we are expecting our second. So that's all I got.
Thank you very much, Director. The one thing I will point out is I miss the sheets that talk about permits and things. So if you could update us on that for next month, or have someone update us.
We'll make that a priority. We have been pretty inundated with permits, and so it's not been a high priority of the administrative staff. But we'll definitely get those back on.
Thank you. Commissioners, our agenda is exhausted, and we are adjourned at 8:01. Thank you all very much.
A video of this meeting is available for viewing on the city's website, stevenspoint.com/videos.